These are the notes or the presentation for formal lab reports. So if you are in Chem 1, actually both Chem 1 and Chem 2, you will have to write formal lab reports 4 times throughout the year, so 1 formal lab per 9 weeks. So these are the guidelines. Formal lab reports have to have these 8 sections: an introduction, materials, pre-lab questions, procedure, observation and data table, calculations, post-lab questions, and a conclusion. Formal labs have to have the title of the lab at the top of the paper, and they have to be handwritten. These cannot be typed. Some other important information, please never ever tear out pages of your lab report. If you make a mistake, just leave it in there. It's okay. You won't be counted off for making mistakes necessarily. Do not tear out any pages. If you make mistakes in the pre-lab, you can always go back and correct those later on. You can only write in blue or black pen, no pencil, and each section that I mentioned a few slides ago has to have a title. So our first section is an introduction. In the introduction, you need to state the purpose of the lab, any important background information, any sources of error that might happen. Examples might be some sources of like human error, maybe measuring wrong, maybe looking at something differently than someone else looks at it. Just try to predict anything that could go wrong with your measurements or with your lab. You're also stating any precautionary measures, so that would be looking up the chemicals that we're using, looking up the SDS online or in the notebook, and writing those safety precautions out. And you always have to write in third person, so you can't say you, I, we, us. All of it's third person. The introduction needs to be 1 full written page. If you make a mistake anywhere in the lab report, you just draw 1 single line through it, write the date above it or beside it, and initial it. So there's an example for you. Don't like color out the whole mistake to where I can't see what it was. Just draw a little line, write the date, write your initials. That's it. Never, ever, ever erase, which you shouldn't be doing anyway because it's all in pen. Next, we have the materials section. This is all of your chemicals and equipment that you're using in the specific lab. Please try and list it in column form. So example, I have all of those pieces of equipment. It's listed in 3 separate columns. So that is how I would like that to be written in your lab report. Pre-lab questions, you will be giving these before the lab most of the time. So you have to write out the pre-lab question in your lab report, and then right under that you would write the answer. So there's an example of that for you. Next, we have the procedure. In the procedure, you're writing the order that the steps are done in the lab. It's going to be short and simple. You need to include all the chemicals, all the equipment, all the instruments that you used. Again, you're writing in third person. Do not copy the directions directly. So I'll give you a handout of what exactly you're supposed to be doing. Your procedures are not a copy of that. Your procedures are short, simple summaries and simple directions. Next, we have the data table. The data table could be different depending on what kind of lab we're doing, but really any important observations need to go in that table. And we have observations. Any observations should be recorded in detail. The more detailed you are, the better it's going to be. Remember to talk in third person. Any errors that you find in the lab should be noted here. So let's say you were doing a lab and you should have had a certain percent of a product and your percentage was wrong. You need to write why you think it was wrong and what the error was. Next, we have calculations. Any calculations for the lab need to be noted in this section. You have to show all of your math and include all of the work. So if there's just answers there, that doesn't mean anything to me. That's just numbers. I need to see how you got to that number and how you got to that answer. So make sure to show all of your math and make sure you have units on every single number. Every single measurement needs to have a unit attached to it. Next, we have post-lab questions. These are going to be the same requirements as the pre-lab, so you write out the question, right under that you would write out your answer. Complete these after the lab, every single time after the lab. Lastly, we have the conclusion. This is where you're going to restate what the purpose of the lab was, state all of your results, validate or verify those results. So that basically just means to prove what you got and why you got it. With supportive data and sources of error, the conclusion has to be half a page to 3/4 of a page long. Again, you need to write in third person. So how will these lab reports be graded? You will have 2 grades. One grade will be basically participation, and I'm about to show you the rubric for that. The second grade is the actual lab report, and it's a test grade. So it will be graded on appearance. Is it neat? Can I read it? Is it written in pen and not pencil? Each section is also worth a certain number of points, and that's all listed there for you. So here's the rubric for doing the lab in general. You'll be graded on interpersonal skills in group work. How well do you work with others? Are you a good team member? That sort of thing. Participation to achieve group goals. Were you actually helping and working in the lab, or was someone else doing all the work? Procedural knowledge. Are you following directions and following the steps? Safety. Following all safety procedures. How you're using the equipment. How your work area looks throughout the lab and when you clean up, and return of equipment. So all of that is graded, and this is the rubric that I will be using for that. So again, if you guys have questions or anything, let me know. This first lab, we will write the report together. So then after that, the next 3, you'll kind of be on your own, but I will be here for questions.